financial gain to you or to a member of your immediate family. Does anyone have a conflict of interest? A lot of people are, sitting here thinking like, really? Can I get this? No, it doesn't financial gain to you or to a. So.
Real cheese production.
Let's move on to our new business then. And as soon as we're just going to wait here 1 second then.
For our audience, we're watching some commercials on YouTube.
Not by choice, actually, no. Okay. What I'd like to do, our first item on the new business is the city's active transportation plan. I'd like to introduce Justin Jones from WSP. WSP is a very large consulting firm with expertise in engineering, architecture, infrastructure, landscape architecture, a bunch of things with a particular expertise in active transportation. The city has entered into a contract with them to create a new active transportation plan. And with that, I'd like to introduce Justin. And Justin, go ahead. If there's any other introductory remarks you want to make, feel free to.
No, I think that's great. Thanks, Don. I'll get into a little bit more of the discussion about the plan and about our team in the presentation here. So first off, just thank you to the committee for having me today. It's something that is very near and dear to my heart to ensure that every time we're doing any of our active transportation planning exercises, that we are meaningfully considering the needs of people who are living with disabilities in terms of everything that we do. We want to make sure that everything that we are preparing is designed to facilitate and support the independent mobility of people of all ages and abilities. And that's exactly what we are always aiming to do at WSP. So especially in projects that I'm involved in, it's key to the work that I really want to get going on. So I just wanted to highlight the fact that we'll go through this agenda. So I'll do introductions. What is an active transportation plan anyways? A little bit about the vision, objectives, guiding principles, talking a little bit about what we've done so far in terms of mapping the community, looking at the active transportation potential, and then we'll get into discussion. So this will be where you've got opportunity to ask any questions. So just in terms of, our project team, I'm part of a fairly significant team on this. So I'm the engagement lead and deputy project manager for this. I'm supported by Dave McLaughlin and a number of different folks at the WSP side that are working on, both technical and engagement side. And we're supported at the City of Sault Ste. Marie by a number of different staff, a couple of whom are in the room there. I heard Peter's name. So Peter and Jonathan and other folks within the city that have been supporting us through this process. So in terms of what is an active transportation master plan, so just kind of like general, what is the thing that we're doing? It is a plan that's going to support the growth of both physical and social infrastructure to support walking, cycling, and rolling within the city. When I say social infrastructure, what that means is that, it's easy to see the physical side of things, the bike lanes, the sidewalks, the trails, the bike parking, those kinds of things. But social infrastructure is the stuff that you kind of feel rather than see. So that's the kind of programming and supports that help to get people moving in a different way around the community. We want to build upon the existing multi-use trail network and also develop tools that are going to encourage residents to use active transportation through a network that's equitable and accessible for people of all ages and abilities. So one of the things that we undertook as we started this project was a policy review. So we looked through a number of different policy documents from the City of Sault Ste. Marie to ensure that what we're recommending as part of the active transportation master plan aligns with what's already been approved by the city. So that's their official plan, the transportation master plan, the strategic plan, the cycling plan, the parks and recreation master plan, as well as the environmental sustainability plan. So we've gone through a number of different plans to ensure that that what we are recommending aligns with the city's overall objectives. And from that, we've come up with a vision for the project. And so the vision for the project is kind of a long-term, goal for what we want to see in Sault Ste. Marie moving forward. And our long-term vision is that Sault Ste. Marie is a place where it is easy for people of all ages and abilities to choose active transportation. A safe, accessible, and connected network links the Hub Trail to all destinations within the city, allowing people to walk, bike, or wheel for both transportation and recreation, creating a more inclusive, connected, and climate-friendly city for generations to come. So it's quite a bit on the screen there, and we can come back to that at the end. But I just wanted to highlight that we structure that in such a way that it kind of reaches all the points, and then we develop a series of objectives. And these objectives are the ones that really kind of define how we're making decisions as we go through the project. So the objectives that we've created are things like enhance safety and accessibility. So ensuring that there's rehabilitation and mobility corridors using a complete streets approach, which allows for the creation of space for all users for walking, rolling, and cycling. Doing education and encouragement to provide residents with the resources to allow them to adopt active transportation modes. Create connectivity to fill in the transportation network gaps, specifically connecting to the Hub Trail and to key destinations. And then ensuring transportation equity and ensuring that folks of all ages and abilities are able to move around their city in a way that allows them independence and dignity. So we are looking at a few different elements of a plan, and one of the things that we wanted to do was make sure that we weren't kind of sticking our head in the sand and only looking at the plans that WSP has developed. So we undertook a review of best practices. So we looked around at what different communities have done, and we developed a series of best practices that we're using to go forward with the project. So the first is to engage local stakeholders and organizations early in the development of the plan. So we've been connecting with different agencies and partners as we've been developing this plan, and we're pretty excited about where we're getting to. We wanted to make sure that we're taking engagements to residents in places they already are, which is why we're at meetings like this and why we've been at other meetings throughout the city as well. We want to create plans for all ages and abilities facilities. So that means, again, creating those kind of accessible routes. And ones that approve upon existing facilities as well. We want to make sure that our report materials are in plain language so they're easy for the community to understand, and that maps really show the vision for the plan. Maps can be a wonderful tool to communicate the story and tell so much about what we want to do. So I'll go through a couple of different best practices, and I won't linger on these too much, but I will just kind of provide a bit of information for folks, and then we'll get into a bit of a discussion. So, one of the things that's key to our active transportation plan is the development of a complete streets approach within the city of Sault Ste. Marie. And that means that, we want to make sure that streets are looking at the way that they shape the city in terms of how they, how they prioritize mobility versus placemaking in a community, and what types of needs are being considered and what types are being left out when we design streets that only prioritize mobility. So it's a bit of a shift in terms of how we design our public spaces. And it starts rather than from the center line out, which is kind of what you see on the left-hand side here. Center line out design, essentially what that means is that you kind of start with the idea that you're building as many car lanes as you really think that you need. And then if there's room left over, then you add in the other stuff. So whether it's trails or bike lanes or public space, all those kinds of things get kind of shunted off to the edge. Using a complete streets approach, you work your way from the outside in, and you start out there in the public realm with the pedestrian realm, the seating areas, the kind of like urban street trees, those types of things. And you move in and you ask yourself, what elements do we need to consider in this corridor? And then how do we end up with, how many vehicle lanes do we end up with based on the overall context of the street and what we want to see it do moving forward? So a couple other pieces that I wanted to talk about. One is the Vision Zero strategy that's been kind of percolating around North America for a little while. And Vision Zero is the concept that no deaths are essentially acceptable on our roadways, that every single person who loses their life while traveling around our communities, that's an unacceptable loss of life. In the same way that we look at, if there's an airplane crash, for example, there's an investigation, there's contingencies put in place, there's new policies and procedures enacted to reduce the likelihood that those types of errors occur. And Vision Zero takes that same approach and applies it to our roads. So it looks at the fact that all deaths should be preventable, and we should be focusing on the movements and the types of collisions that result in fatalities and serious injuries. It reflects the fact that people make mistakes, and that those mistakes shouldn't be a death sentence. And so designing a road system that accounts for human error is very important. And creating the kind of accountability, not only for road users, but also for the designers of those systems, and saying, how has this design contributed to any of the factors that cause these collisions? Transportation equity, one of the pieces that I want to highlight here is that we at WSP are consistently working on, kind of improving our outreach and the way that we are incorporating equity into our mobility planning practices. So we want to ensure that we're hearing from, from people who are not typically engaged when it comes to mobility projects like a transportation plan, and that we are going out there and really touching base with them and hearing how the mobility system as it exists now it disproportionately impacts them, and how we can start to make changes to that system. So it's a fundamental shift in terms of how we look at mobility. And that's something that's core to the work that we do here. And then finally, and this is the last one that I'll kind of talk about before I move on into a little bit of a discussion about the mapping that we've done, is the emerging trends of micromobility. This is something I think is of particular interest, to a lot of accessibility advisory communities around Ontario. Is the introduction and the proliferation of some of these micromobility devices. So whether it's e-scooters or electric bikes or other types of micromobility devices, how are those treated, and how are those prioritized, and how are those operating within our urban environments? So I'll try and go quickly through, because I know you guys have a very busy agenda, and I don't want to spend too much time here. So I just want to highlight that, we reviewed all of the existing conditions for the city, and we found that there's about 380 kilometers of sidewalks, about 74 kilometers of off-road trails, about 28 kilometers of hub trail, and then about 44 kilometers of spoke routes. And so those are the kinds of facilities that we're looking at in terms of the existing conditions when we show the mapping here. And so this map shows just basically an overlay of all the different types of facilities that are already in existence in Sault Ste. Marie. And then the dashed lines show any of the proposed routes. And so those are some of the previously proposed routes. So whether it's through the cycling plan, the transportation master plan, it's kind of showing all of the ones that have been previously considered. And then we also show the previously proposed and the existing pedestrian network. And what you'll notice here is that the pedestrian network is a little bit more well-defined and a little bit more robust than the cycling network. And that, I think comes from just the policy of the city when it comes to sidewalks. So in terms of the potential for active transportation in Sault Ste. Marie, we really want to make sure that when we're looking at how we're prioritizing routes across the city for the active transportation plan, that we're designing with the safety and accessibility in mind first, that we're creating connections and continuous routes, that we're identifying routes that are feasible, that are actually constructible. We don't want to, identify something that can never be built based on the constraints of the corridors. We want to support multimodal needs, so connecting to transit facilities and providing space for all users. And we want to connect to key destinations. So those are really the key elements and the criteria that we're using to get to our candidate route network. And the candidate route network is kind of, twofold here. So we're showing the pedestrian network first. And this map demonstrates, all of the different pedestrian connections and the proposed sidewalks that we are looking at carrying forward within the active transportation master plan to better connect some of the existing sidewalks with destinations that are important to residents of the city, with a specific focus on schools. You know, we did notice that there was a number of schools that had streets connecting to them that didn't have any sidewalks, or only had sidewalks on one side. And so we wanted to make sure that there was strong connectivity, especially for those destinations, because we know that those are key places for mobility within the city. And then in terms of the cycling network, you know, we're showing similar, I would say, a similar network to what was already previously proposed, but we are showing a little bit higher level of separation and creating more all ages and abilities network here. Rather than just doing kind of painted bike lanes, we're really starting to shift towards physical separation. So, you know, similar to the cycle track, that multi-use trail on Bay Street, we're really looking to move towards that type of design that separates people from vehicles on the road. And so, you know, with that, we're going to, I really just want to open it up to you and just ask, you know, is there anything that's missing? I know it's kind of like trying to drink from a fire hose when I do presentations like this, but I'm trying to fit everything into your agenda. And so I'll kind of, I'll leave it there for all of you.
Derek?
Yes, this is Derek Lavalley. I'm a member of the committee. I just wanted to know, if, let's say, there was a lot of construction at some point and we could not get around in our wheelchairs, is the trail, just because it says bikes, can a wheelchair get on the trails? Like, if there was a barrier and I had to go around and there was a bike lane there, could I get on the bike lane, or is it just strictly for bikes?
So one of the interesting things, and thank you for that question. One of the trends that we're really starting to see is more of a focus on what I will call mobility lanes, rather than the idea of just bike lanes. And so, you know, for example, like the most recent design guidance from the North American City Transportation Officials, which is NACTO, which is kind of like they provide design guidance for all of North America. And their most recent design guidance actually recommends, instead of just kind of thinking about like bikes and scooters and things like that, they've recently published a new report that's called Designing for Small Things with Wheels. And the idea there is that any type of wheeled mobility device, so whether it's a mobility scooter, an electric kick-style scooter, a bike, an electric bike, a wheelchair, a powered wheelchair, those kinds of human scale devices that are like small things with wheels, that those would be kind of designed to be accommodated in those facilities. There's no specific legislation that restricts wheelchair users from using cycling facilities, and that would certainly not be something that we would ever recommend. We've actually heard in a lot of different instances where wheelchair users prefer to use you know, whether it's a cycle track or a multi-use trail compared to a sidewalk, because the lack of concrete seams creates a more comfortable and smooth experience for users. So that's, you know, I hope that answers your question. It's just to say that, yeah, use them, and that would not be a recommendation that we would ever put forward, that there be a restriction on wheelchair users entering bike lanes.
I just asked that because back in the day, if you needed to get somewhere and there was no sidewalk, a wheelchair would have to travel on the road. So this, if we make the lanes, the bike lanes accessible to wheelchairs, we don't have to be on the road.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Carol? go ahead.
Okay, I got a question here, and everybody here is probably tired of me bringing this up all the time, but I will continue bringing it up. Pine Street, there's no sidewalks on one side. So, how can we safely, because earlier you had said you don't want no accidents or anything like that, nobody hurt. It is an absolute hazard if you have to travel anywhere on the east side of Pine Street between McNabb and St. Paul School. There's no sidewalk. If you live on that side of the road, you can't get anywhere in the winter time. You're stuck inside all winter long because there's no path, there's no sidewalk. The mailmen do not deliver mail to those units, all those blocks during the winter time. So you have to walk all the way to Willoughby to get your mail, but if you can't even walk on your side of the street to even get to the mailbox, then your mailbox is staying full all winter long. I'm told to just cross the street wherever, but that's considered jaywalking. I have vision loss. I am scared to death to cross sometimes because the traffic's so heavy. And I could walk all the way to the lights, but when I get to the lights, once again, I cross, there's no sidewalk. And then I'm told, well, walk on the side of the road in the middle of winter time because there's no path, no sidewalk, and there's ruts of snow everywhere. And the cars are honking at you, wondering why you're in the middle of the road. And if I had a guide dog with me, there's just not enough room. It's an absolute hazard without having a sidewalk on that side of the street. So can we kind of bundle this into what you're talking about somehow?
So I apologize. Obviously it's challenging to it's challenging to kind of communicate different elements on maps without for people with vision loss without without kind of producing like what would essentially be just kind of like a monstrous Excel document that you'd have to go through. But we are showing sidewalks being added to Pine Street. We are also showing, just for your information, we're showing 3 different proposed crossings on Pine Street. And so those proposed crossings would be signalized kind of pedestrian crossover. And those are being proposed, one at the one in front of the school there, south of Cunningham, one just north of McNabb, I think near the apartments, and then one near St. Paul Catholic School at Pleasant Drive. So those are the 3 additional crossings that are being evaluated within this, in addition to adding sidewalks along the entirety of Pine Street.
Thank you. Thank you.
Happy to know that we got that one right.
Justin and Scott, just to comment on that as well, that section of Pine Street goes only 1 lane in each direction. But the street itself is very wide and traffic tends to really cut along there at a nice pace. When I say nice, if you're in the race car business, it looks really well.
Yeah.
Just a point of interest. Derek?
I just had a question. I know of an area on Sackville Road. I go to church and every time I cross that second line, go to church, there is no sidewalk once you get onto Sackville Road. So if we can make that another priority list, greatly appreciate.
Hey, I'm just gonna check and see if we've got that one on here. Tricky to see on here, but I will double check. I will make sure that we are capturing it if we haven't.
And Jonathan's taking great notice.
Perfect.
Carrie?
It's Carrie Tuckett. It's kind of a question because I've seen this happen more than once for more than one elementary school, but elementary schools where children are required to walk to school on more than one occasion or more than one school do not have sidewalks to walk to school, which to me is so completely dangerous. And where does the obligation lie to fix this problem? Is that the school system that therefore should be providing busing because there is not a sidewalk to get to school safely? Or is that the city that should be adding the sidewalks? Because I can't see a 7-year-old walking around a winding corner, 90-degree corner with the morning traffic of kids being dropped off, trying to navigate this little dirt path along the side of the road, you know? And it's more than one school that I'm thinking of. So I just wonder if that's really a priority.
So, so just to, I mean, any sidewalk that are, basically any sidewalk is going to be city responsibility. So those are within the municipal right of way. And so it would be kind of on the city for those investments. And it is that point until you get onto the property of the school. So once you kind of get onto the school property, that's where that would change. And so, you know, I know it's hard to see on this map, and you know, we can circulate kind of some better like higher quality maps for the committee after this session. But just to make sure that we're clear, you know, if there was a school that didn't have a sidewalk leading up to it, we have essentially added sidewalks to every single one of them. There's not a single school that would be left without a sidewalk that leads to it, based on this plan. And that Sackville Road is included on our list already, just for to circle back.
Thanks, that's great.
Thanks, Justin. Great.
John, general question regarding the plan and winter maintenance, snow removal. I know it's not what the recommendation. I know that this, one of the things being in Northern Ontario, we have significant weather events fairly frequent, not as much as we did when we were younger. Global warming is real, but it still blocks part of the trail system, part of the sidewalks, the whole question of winter maintenance. And how will that be dealt with within the plan? And is that, I know that being a national company, probably have weather concerns in other places, but this is something that we in the Soo still cope with quite a lot.
Yeah, and thank you for that question. That's one of the, you know, really key elements that we want to look at as we go through this is, you know, when it comes in terms of the next steps and what we're going to be doing, that's where it's going to kind of fit into this implementation strategy, is talking about any of the winter maintenance needs for the city. And so our experience and the recommendations that we are usually crafting into any of our reports is for a municipality to essentially kind of like start, and I mean, I'll be careful in terms of how I say this, but start small, but really nail it when it comes to the level of service that they're providing on winter networks. So identifying like a relatively small network of winter maintained facilities, and having very high levels of maintenance service on those. So working closely with the operations department to determine where that capacity might exist, and ensuring that there is a high degree of attention paid to the conditions of those particular facilities. And then, you know, kind of measuring and monitoring and reporting back on how it's worked, and potentially expanding it out as you start to see more people using it. So, you know, a good example, like the city of Ottawa is an excellent example where, you know, they have over 400 kilometers of multi-use trails and cycling facilities. And they started with a winter maintenance network of about 40 kilometers. But those 40 kilometers were consistently and predictably maintained with the same degree of kind of service that would be provided on like an arterial road network for a community. And based on the results of that and the growing kind of number of people that were using it through the winter, they've since expanded it out, but they started small and they really nailed the implementation. And that, I think, is what we want to encourage communities to do as they're starting to think about how they're going to get to, you know, more of a 4-season active transportation style network. I can't recall, because I'm working on too many of these right now. Does the city currently do sidewalk maintenance?
Some,
Yes,
Some.
maybe how he described it, it's a very limited amount, but I think the limited amount that we do quite well.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
Justin, it's Lisa Bezuela, I'm city councillor. So sidewalk maintenance, as Peter can confirm, is pretty much like your major thoroughfares. So like the downtown Queen Street, where schools are located, like major thoroughfares. So I know what Craig was alluding to is we do not maintain any of the trail system.
Yeah.
It is not maintained. So especially along Bay Street, you'll see folks going from east, like towards the Bush Plain, that is not maintained. But Bay Street around City Hall and Tim Hortons and all of that, bring downtown, it's maintained. So
Okay.
there's certain, like to connect, that would be definitely an addition to the winter maintenance in terms of active transportation.
Gotcha. Okay.
And I didn't expect it to be done immediately, Counselor, just, it's one of those things that if we're looking. I find the idea of
We
being,
need Larry here.
I find things being segregated from traffic to my
Yeah,
general benefit. I think they're more likely to be utilized by both bike and Megan. Small, little, big.
I love that.
I learned something new today.
Small things with wheels.
Small things would be.
Small things with little sound, although some of them are not so small as compared to what they were started. Because I can tell you that when the up trail and the cycling plan were originally developed,
I know.
Derek's question comes back from,
Yeah,
about this without being indelicate. We actually had, right, I can tell you that in one subcommittee meeting, the human rights complaint was actually openly discussed.
Yeah.
I don't know if the meeting minutes still exist, but I can tell you the folks in the cycling club swallowed their tongue when they realized we weren't kidding.
yeah,
And it was Mrs. McNaughton, the late Sylvia Mosher, myself, and a couple other folks. And we do not kidding. We don't threaten, but they hadn't realized that they were subject to the Human Rights Act.
right.
A little bit of an education will end.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So I think Justin, and Jonathan, that would be a good note to add on like those connector parts of the trail. Because you're definitely not gonna get all of the trail. But the connector pieces, I think, would be, critical in this, in creating that, acceptability piece. Agreed? Agreed?
yes.
Does that make
definitely.
sense? Okay.
And,
Good place to start.
and Justin, it's gone, just as in further on that, it's not just snow removal. It's just overall maintenance standards as well. I mean, we have a section of the Hub Trail. I've not been on it this year, but I was on it a number of times last year from, what used to be St. Patrick's School, which has a new name now.
Holy Cross.
Holy Cross School up to Eastview. And there are sections that are pretty rough. Like, for somebody who's walking, pretty rough. So it goes beyond the whole snow removal.
Sorry, Justin, to that end, will your discussion paper where we're talking about snow removal, just to take this one step further, like right now, I believe the way that you potentially get a sidewalk on the snow removal list is that you literally call Public Works.
There's an application.
There's an application process, but will you, like, as part of your review, are you looking like, how do municipalities do this? Like, there has to be, to me, there has to potentially be a better way. Like, I can tell you traffic counts going back 20 years on roads, and I know we can measure pedestrian counts on sidewalks. So are there best practices that other municipalities are using so that they can determine what that standard of care needs to be for that sidewalk? Whether it be, you know, the concrete's breaking up and this is a busier sidewalk than that sidewalk, or this sidewalk's now busy enough to warrant snow removal.
Yeah, I would say that we haven't necessarily that's a really interesting question, and something that I will definitely get into and look at, because I think that is the idea of developing the idea of developing kind of thresholds and those kind of pieces that we could look at for kind of hierarchies, I think would be really valuable. So we'll take a look around and see if there's any of those available, because it would, I think there is one of the things that we're starting to see a bit more, and I think it's proliferating a bit more when it comes to like road maintenance, would be the development of kind of like smart technology that's showing like, what has been plowed, smart scheduling, those kinds of things that like, I think that that's an actual valuable application of some of the smart cities technology that could then also be applied for things like sidewalks. So yeah, I think that's a really valuable question and something that we'll look into. Thanks for flagging that.
Derek, go ahead.
Yes, this is for Peter and Jonathan. I live at Northern Avenue. There is a alleyway heading over to the Cambridge Mall here in Simpson Marie. And it's a dead end road, and then it comes into the apartment building. What has happened is that there's pavement back there, but it's gotten buckled, and so like we have pavement, but it just needs to be more solid. Like, I don't know if you look at that or not.
Derek, is that the building right at the end of Elmwood?
The Lions,
Yeah.
It's not Lions Heights.
That's fine.
Lions commissary.
Yeah, so like there.
We'll look at a map and try and we'll get back.
Yeah. It may be on on city's property, it may be on somebody else's property.
Yeah.
Hey, can I comment on that also?
Yeah.
Because I know the spot, okay? It is a dead end road. Now, when you're at that dead end road, there is a cement sidewalk slabs going into where their building is. And I think it's the landlord that's supposed to maintain that sidewalk. But is there something maybe they can, because it's not open up in the wintertime, unless somebody goes out there and shovels it,
The dead end road is north-south.
Correct.
right at the end.
And this
Behind
alleyway to get to the dead end road.
Yep.
And it's a shortcut for everybody. Everybody uses it, everybody.
Yeah. We'll take a
It's a
look.
necessity, yeah.
Like a specific, and we'll take a look at that.
Okay, clear.
Does, I have a question, but does anybody else have a question first they'd like to?
Just one.
Go ahead, Lisa.
And this has come up before. Justin, are there going to be any charging stations? I know the library has a charging station. And I know that can definitely when we're talking about these small things with wheels. We get t-shirts that say small things with wheels. It's another question as well.
This committee will take care of the t-shirt.
We just need his permission to use it.
I like it. So those kinds of amenities are going to be included within the recommendation for like both policy and for implementation. So that's actually formed part of our recommendations for a number of different projects lately, is the idea of creating those charging stations that can allow for the recharge of whether it's an electric bike, a powered wheelchair, an electric scooter, any of those kind of small things with wheels. And they also serve, a dual purpose in that, especially when they're installed at strategic locations through the city's parks and recreation areas. It also allows for people, who are kind of hanging out in public space to be able to like charge their phones and those kinds of things. And we know that those are important considerations for public space.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
Derek, go ahead.
Question for accessibility, coordinator. Diane, we usually have a student every summer. Is there any way that maybe we can, if we do have a summer student, that can meet with individuals like myself to go through the downtown? What's it called, the downtown, like,
The redevelopment,
no,
downtown redevelopment.
not the
The business association?
No, the,
Plaza?
trails. Like where to get off, like I was telling you, Station Mall, like, so if I'm on the, if I leave the library, I just don't know where to get off safely
Oh, yes.
to cross over the road.
So someone to help you learn how to navigate the trails.
Yes,
I don't have a summer student, but Lisa has said if she gets some summer students to lend me one for a period of time.
And I applied for 5 summer students at Grocery for Good. So I anticipate that we can do some student sharing.
okay,
Yes.
so no, it's just because we just have to know where to go. Where to get off so that we're not causing an accident.
Yeah, if, whether or not we get a student, Derek, I'm happy to go out with you and we can tour the trail and we'll make an afternoon of that on a good day.
And I can even get my CLA worker shirtless, so, but that's just, I need to know, because I don't live downtown. I need to know where to get off the trail safely.
Yes, yeah, we can go over that together, Derek.
Okay,
Justin, thanks very much for all your comments, for coming here today. My general question is this, and actually it's 2 questions, so you can pick whatever you want to, look at, address these at. One is, I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about the process moving forward and opportunities for this committee as well as the general public to participate. And my other question is, and you made reference to it very early on in your presentation about setting priorities. And I'm just wondering if there would be an opportunity, I think you were talking about setting criteria for setting priorities. And I'm just wondering if there would be an opportunity if specific projects are going to be recommended to council with timeframes, if there would be an opportunity for this committee to comment on that. That would be very helpful for us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Don. Those are the kind of questions that I would expect from someone of your pedigree. I appreciate it. So just, you know, in terms of additional opportunities for comment, our plan is to go out to the public again. You know, we did have an online survey and mapping tool, and we received a pile of feedback. We had over 400 comments on our mapping tool. So we got a lot of feedback that's very detailed and has helped us to develop that candidate network. And the plan is to go out to the community once again through the kind of spring and summer. And I'm hopeful, Don, that I actually get to come up to Sault Ste. Marie. I know you and I have been only trying to get that to happen for like 8, 9, 10 years. So, eventually I will get up there. So I'm gonna, yeah, the plan is that we'll come up there, we'll host an open house, we'll do some pop-up sessions, we'll do some engagements. And then as we start to get into the implementation timing, you know, that's really where we're going to be looking at how we're going to be structuring the kind of short, medium and long-term recommendations for the plan. And those will be advanced, you know, through different discussions. But our objective there is certainly to, you know, connect with the different city committees and agencies to identify any of the priority projects. We certainly want to try and align as much as we can with the city's capital works forecast, so that we're not necessarily kind of putting stuff out there that is going to have to be a standalone project, but that we're trying to align it with the capital works forecast. But where there are those high priority items, we want to make sure that we're flagging those as well, so that, you know, if those aren't coming up for capital reconstruction for a little while, but there is the significance in terms of the connectivity and they meet a lot of those criteria that we've identified, then those might justify getting moved up into the short term and encourage the city to kind of seek funding or try and bring on additional resources to make those happen. So those types of things will definitely come back to the committee about that and have additional opportunities for the committee and other members of the public to continue to comment on this project.
Thanks, Justin. That's great. Totally agree with, yeah, the majority of the stuff needs to go with the capital works plan. But this committee is exceptionally good at finding, small projects that are kind of just hanging out there that do need to be addressed.
Yeah.
Thanks very much. Does anyone else have any questions or comments for Justin before we let him go? Justin, once again, thanks very much. Nice to see you, by the way. And,
Yeah, nice to see you too, Don.
Thanks, looking forward to chatting on this again. Thanks.
Yeah, and I just want to just quickly say thank you to the committee for providing me all of your time and expertise. It's been a very valuable opportunity for me to hear from you, and I hope that it was also valuable for yourselves. So thanks again. Have a wonderful rest of your day. I'm going to take off because I got a 3 o'clock I got to get ready for.
Thanks. Appreciate
Bye-bye.
your help. I'm thinking we might want to make a slight change in the agenda, given the time frame. Jonathan, would you be all right if we skip down to Carl Ramil? I know, Peter, I think, is Carl anxious to move forward with the lobby improvements?
Yes.
And that's kind of
Yeah.
more immediate, if we were to pop down to that.
Mhm.
Hi, Carl, welcome to our committee.
Thanks, Don.
Terrific. Well, you're in a tough spot, my friend, because, Justin's presentation was so good. I don't know if you got a chance to see it.
Yeah, I was sort of working in the background, but yeah, I paid attention and it was great. Mine is not going to take as much time. I just wanted to give you guys an update. I'll share my screen if I can.
Just for the benefit of the committee,
Sure.
Carl is the city's director of engineering. So he is responsible for engineering services. And that's kind of a broad ranging bunch of stuff, but it also includes all the improvements that have been made to the Civic Center over the last few years. And in particular, how we are going to make our front door accessible to people. So Carl, over to you.
So are you guys seeing my screen? That's the
Yes, we are.
great. So I had sent most of what you'll see on these slides, I had sent to Diane last week. You might have had a chance to see some of the renderings and a drawing. These are essentially the very same. I will send Diane these slides after. I had Jordan, our assistant here, put it into a gussied up nice PowerPoint presentation that meets the city's visual identity standards. So this is what you're seeing here right now. So last night, at council last night, council did approve awarding the front entrance and underground parking, waterproofing, and an exterior elevator contract to Ontario Concrete. So that was awarded. It was like a lot of projects, infrastructure projects across Ontario. We had only a couple million. We had about 2.4 million, I think, in the budgeted from previous years, and that project came in just under 4 million with some a bit of a reduced scope. So it was a challenge to get that awarded, but we're there so that they can get going. So before I switch slides, you guys hear me all right? My headset wasn't working well, so I'm just trying to wing this with the onboard mic.
We can hear you fine, Carl. Let's just charge ahead. That's great.
Okay. So I think the best way to do this is a couple more renderings we'll go through, but this is a plan view of the project. And if you have any questions, stop me and I'll try to explain it better. I'm going to use this cursor just to sort of point to some things. So essentially, as City Hall exists right now, there's a long wheelchair ramp that goes follows this alignment, and then comes up the side of the building, and then another second wheelchair ramp, accessibility ramp that goes to the front doors. The front doors are in this area right here. Everybody can see the arrow I'm circling.
Yeah.
So that we are replacing that ramp does not meet current standards, Ontario Building Code or FADS. It's too steep to replace the ramp to a standard that would satisfy that. Would probably have the ramp ending somewhere past the flags in the front yard there. So we had to come up with a different solution. So this right here is an exterior elevator. So essentially, we'll talk about 3 different elevations that the end product is gonna look at. We have the parking lot elevation leave a vehicle in the parking lot through a wheelchair ramp. This is the lower vestibule of an elevator. You'll enter the elevator from this side. This is the elevator here, and then at the upper level, you'll see this better in the renderings. You'll leave from a second vestibule entering at what I'll call Civic Center, second floor elevation. So this elevation will be, there's no grade on this leaving here. There's no ramp. It's just one elevation straight into the building, where you'll meet the security and determine where you need to go in City Hall and get on the elevator and go to go down the next elevator and go to where we need to go. So that's how we're improving accessibility. And this project also was there's a requirement through our building assessment. I think it was 2019 or 2020 that the underground parking garage needed to be waterproof. So this was a good time to deal with this ramp, because the walls and the roof of that underground parking is under the ramp. So to remove that and waterproof that. So that's a big component of this job. The stairs, this set of stairs here, it's sort of a 3-faced staircase, concrete, that you see closed half the year, except for a couple little pathways to get in, because it's deteriorating concrete. The concrete's nearing 50 years old. We need to do work on it every year. So we're demolishing this staircase, replacing it with a galvanized staircase, just one with hand railing up to the new elevation. So there is actually a set of stairs walking up into the building right now. This whole platform here, this elevation, will be the same as I said, as where you'd leave the elevator, and be raised. So that the stairs, the last 4 steps, I believe, into the building are gone, will be gone. And as well, on the lower platform level here, be resurfaced with the existing stamped concrete and paving brick be removed and replaced with new. And the lower stairs will be replaced with galvanized stairs with matching these ones. And that's essentially the project. So you see it a lot better in the renderings. You can see this would be parking lot elevation right where I'm circling. These stairs are galvanized stairs with decorative railings up to this elevation here. There's a wall here, keeping people on up this middle platform from, it's quite a fall right here. This would be the entrance to the lower vestibule of the elevator, into the elevator up, and then exiting up. Secondly, you see that better in the next couple of renderings. It's just a little bit higher look. You can see the walkway from the elevator over to this upper platform area, and there's no last 4 steps going into the building here at the doors anymore. So you get a sense of what it will look like. Looks a lot different without this wraparound set of concrete steps that we're continually putting a new coating on. And this is the exit from the upper vestibule of the elevator building. And you walk through, again, this will be raised, the 4 steps that currently you'd have to walk up to the entrance. So this is all at 2nd floor elevation. So there's no bump entering the building. You just, from exiting the elevator, straight into the building. This elevator building is a fully climate controlled, heated building. There's an entrance from the parking lot elevation to the upper platform elevation, automated door to get in and out of it. So it's got the same exterior ACM panels that are on the Civic Center now, so it will completely match. And that is essentially what we've awarded last night. Go ahead.
Well, we have a couple of committee members with questions. Derek, let me go ahead.
Okay, did you know that now most new elevators are voice recognition? Basically what they do is they have a computer voice that tells the person where they're going, like whether they're going up or down.
Okay,
Okay, so when we get the elevator, if we can look at getting a voice activate, it will, as soon as you step in, it'll tell you where you are and tell you, like, it'll keep telling you the number. So let's say I'm on the first floor, it'll say ground, and then it'll say number 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And that's all, and it also says to people, like if the wheelchair's hitting the door, it'll come on and say, please move from the doors. The hospital already has one. It's voice synthesized, so every floor, every level that we go on tells us.
okay. I don't have that information at this time. I'm not sure. I truthfully didn't look into the specs of the elevator and whether it's got automated, like you just say second floor and it goes. I don't know. I can review that with the architect and the specs of the contract. I can get that information to Peter and maybe he could relay that.
Okay, because it's really important that we can't pick an elevator that's going to be not working for everybody. Not everybody can see the numbers, so we need the voice synthesized speaker.
Okay, I can look into that and I can relay that back to Peter and get the information to you. And if there's something that we can add on to it, or if there's some, again, I'm not the guy to ask for the details of the elevator. But I'll look into it and let you guys know.
All right, thank you.
Ultimately, it'll have to meet the code and facts.
Oh, yeah, oh, yeah.
It does, yeah.
Yeah,
It's Carol. I find like a lot of the new elevators are putting in, it's all that stainless steel stuff. And that's no good for vision loss at all. I don't know, I mentioned to a few people to check out the elevator at Walker's building, the old Walker's building.
yeah.
And it's fully accessible, fully. The buttons and everything. So this elevator is heated, so they should be able to put the buttons or whatever. Make it, but I think when you say voice activated, Derek, is it when you push the button, it says something or?
Yes,
Okay, yeah, I think it does the same thing, yeah.
it tells you it's going up.
Yeah,
It tells you, okay, if I press 3, it tells me I'm on level 3.
okay, yeah.
And I believe, Carl, correct me if I'm wrong, this elevator only has the one floor. right?
One
It's
floor.
Yeah,
and
it's either going up to the second floor or down to the first. That's
That's it.
Is it an elevator? Is it a lift? Elevator. Okay.
good question. I believe it's an elevator. There is I believe it's a hydraulic elevator, but I don't know. And I'm not, it's a little bit out of my wheelhouse, the elevator concept and construction of that. So I'd have to check with the designer.
Okay, now I got a clearer picture of it now. Okay.
Mhm.
I just wanted to just reiterate what Carol just said, Carl, which is, and I think it's selecting the final finishes, that there is some contrast in there so that you can see where the panel box is with the push button. And also some contrast from the floor and the walls.
Right.
So that's probably a finishing and just, we'd like a level of contrast for those.
So as
And
Peter said, the everything was designed for section 3.8 of the building code and FADS. It meets those requirements. How that translates to the elevator and the fit and finish of that, I'm not sure, but I can review that. And if there's something that has been missed or we can add on relatively easy, we can do that before the contractor orders it. I mean, we just got approval last night, so.
Carl, if it's helpful, we can send you an email to that effect, and then you can make forward and see what the response would be from.
Yeah, I'll get some answers on the specs of the elevator. I suspect that it's gonna do most of these things, but I don't know, so.
Yeah, that would be good. Craig, you have a question?
Just a sort of a two-part question. So on the entry to the City Hall main doors, now that we get to that level through the elevator, is there an actuator on that door present or? Because I usually go through the west entrance.
Automatic.
Oh, it's already picked.
Yeah.
Thank you all. And will the west entrance be maintained? That's the one we still presently use where the purpose drops us off. I use City Hall often as we both use it for the municipal elections and so forth. So that other entrance will still be available.
I think, and Carl, I don't know, maybe let me take a shot at it and tell me if I'm wrong. Like right now, during a busy event like the elections, they would probably have somebody at the west entrance because like there's enough people coming and going that hour, like things that can be a bottleneck. So I think when it's a really busy event, you'll still be able to go through the west entrance and somebody will be there because there's a door there now, right? So it's locked and you need to pick up a phone and get somebody to come down. But I think going forward, this is the entrance
Okay.
that they want everybody to use.
During regular hours, I think I've always been able to use west end. It was always open. That door was always open.
Yes.
Regular business hours.
Not anymore.
Oh, policy change.
Yes.
We
Yeah.
had, when this committee used to be in City Hall, we had to use it because it was not during regular hours and that door was locked. As a matter of policy, we had on occasion to call the court commissioner and have them tell them that it's in or out. And that was, so it's now locked as a matter of course. I didn't realize that. Yeah.
Can I add something, Mr. Chair?
Go ahead there.
Just so you know, Craig, that everything on that west end door now, when you go into that door, there is picture IDs and staff. If you're with a staff member, that's fine. But if you're by yourself and you're trying to get into City Hall, that's where the phone comes in.
So that's no longer, it's no longer the open entrance. It's no longer during regular business hours.
City Hall's more of a controlled access space now, and they want everybody going through this.
As it might should be, I'm not questioning that. There are other issues that are beyond the scope of this body.
Go ahead, Lisa.
The only question I have, Carl, and I know you can't answer it, is, I'm just thinking from a safety perspective. After hours, when we don't have security, is the elevator going to be locked? Like, I really would recommend
So it's a
that.
good question, Lisa. I was thinking of that myself.
Yeah.
Right now, after hours, when I access the building, I walk up the stairs and go straight to the front door and I push the doorbell and the security guard meets me out there and lets me in. I sign in and go about my business. There will still be some decisions to make on operations and access to the building. In my mind, there'll be cameras at that lower vestibule and a doorbell or some kind of access where you could access security from there. If you
Yeah.
need to access the Civic Center via like if you have accessibility needs and you need it after hours. And for after hours is usually after 4:30, but the building, as everybody knows, is well utilized in the evenings as well still. So when there's things on, when the security of the building has something on the schedule, that elevator will be open. Like a council,
Yeah.
like that elevator will be open.
Exactly, like I was thinking, after 9 o'clock type of thing, if you have committee meetings and events and when security do more regular routine checks, but I would highly recommend having the elevator closed.
There's going to have to be,
9 p.m.
there's going to have to be, even as with staff members who may have mobility issues.
Yeah.
Don McConnell used to work at the city and he'd come in every Sunday. So there's gonna have to be some way to contact security from that lower vestibule of the elevator.
Agreed. Thanks, Carl.
Other questions or comments?
I really like it.
Yeah, it's gonna be good.
It'd be nice to be able to go in the front door.
Carl, I have two questions myself. One is, do we know the size of the elevator? I'm just concerned that, we have like really large motorized wheelchairs and, for some individuals, is it a big elevator? Is it a little elevator?
You know what, Don, I could pull the drawings out right now and, and scale it, but how about I summarize that in, response to you guys and give you the actual dimensions? I know it's, seen by the architect as big enough, so.
Okay, then, no,
Get
that's
some-
fine.
I can size
My
that
other-
out to you.
Okay, my other question is, and I know that there's a budget problem. I recognize that, but this is costing way more money than everybody thought it was going to. But it seems kind of strange to me that we bring people into a heated, climate-controlled environment, bring them up in the elevator, and then we put them back outside in the rain. Was there any thought to putting in like even a covered overhead walkway, like where people are walking, they're getting out of the elevator, they're walking to now, they're going to the front door of City Hall. Was there any thought to putting a covered pathway in there?
Yeah, we did look at that. It didn't make the final cut, just the distance from the elevator to the front door. There would be an opportunity at some point to put something in after the fact, like just to break the wind, part way maybe to the exterior foyer. Something we may look at in the future, but it didn't, for not only for cost reasons, it is a long distance, and might look awkward. Cover up those nice new windows on the second floor that CSD looks out now.
I was thinking just a clear plastic covered canopy sort of thing.
Yeah,
It's just a thought.
for sure.
Okay.
Mhm.
Someone's gonna have to get out and shovel it and keep it free of ice, right?
Yeah.
Maintenance wise, it will be a challenge to keep that shoveled for sure.
Dan?
Yeah, thanks, Carl. Just a couple of comments for accessibility. So this is gonna be new and it's gonna take time for people to get to know this. So we'll need some signage and preferably signage that has braille and tactile markings. Some people read braille. It's not as common as one would think for people with vision disabilities, but if we have tactile or raised print, people can feel, oh, okay, that's ELE. They can figure out it's elevator. So that would be very helpful. The other thing that I've just recently heard about was for people with hearing disabilities in the event of a failure of the elevator, that they can push the button and something happens and they can actually communicate to the other person via text. And I'm not sure, but I think that may be part of code these days. But I'll just add that in if that's something that can also be looked at as well, okay?
If you guys are sending me a list, that'd be great. I could work with that and go and get the answers you guys need.
And that came
Yes.
up at council last night,
Yeah.
Councilor Collins as well, who I think sent us an email,
Okay.
More of
Speaking.
the button,
like the help
yeah.
button.
Yes, we'll send you a list, Carl. Thank you very much.
I think I'd rather be stuck in this elevator than like an inside elevator of a day.
I was stuck in an elevator last week. Oh, good thing I had my cell phone on me. Well,
Is there anything else, or any comments or questions for Carl? Carl, before I let you go, I'm sorry for the incredibly short notice of about, 3 seconds. I noticed that there are renovations going on in the lobby itself. Could you talk about those for a minute?
Yeah, no problem. So there was 3 components to the improvements to the Civic Center that were outside of the CSIRO project, say like the exterior, the new windows and all that. One was this exterior work that you see in front of you. The other was a sprinkler system throughout the building, and the third was interior renovations to the second floor, to the security area, to secure the building. This came out of recommendations for security and distancing through COVID-19. So that's where you see right now, we're probably sitting at around 80% complete in the foyer there. The desk that was in the middle as you walked in is gone. Now there's a separate security area right inside the doors. The access to, and I don't have a drawing of this handy, but access to pay your taxes now is you go right up to the window at the department where you used to walk in those doors and someone would meet you and you could sit down and deal with your taxes. There'll be more of a secured window that you would be met, like you wouldn't enter and you stay in the secured area. All those renovations were done with the same, following the same requirements done by, the initial design was done by David Ellis and Associates. Public Works carpenters have done the work on the inside and the interior. I don't know what else I can say right now. I can provide you something to look at.
I guess, Carl, my concern is, or my question is, we have a little different change in philosophy in City Hall, where you used to, as a member of the public, come in, you would go to, if I wanted to see you, I would get in the elevator and go to your office and say, I'd like to see Carl. And that's probably not going to happen very often anymore. I understand you can still bring people in, but it's not the accepted practice.
It's been relaxed a little bit. Like you could probably find your way up to my office now if you had, but you'd have to speak to someone at security. They would verify that they're coming to see me. Somebody may have to come down and meet you. But yeah, gone are the days where you could just walk right in those doors and come in unannounced to the mayor's office, for sure.
But if I'm coming in and I want to speak to somebody in engineering, somebody in building, somebody in planning, by and large, they're going to come down and meet me in the lobby, right at a desk.
Yeah.
And what my question is have those facilities, the desk and that are being provided basically for the public at that point, that's for the meeting. Are they designed to be barrier free?
Yes. Yes, absolutely. The space that like great example of people have to come in and go over their plans, they're applied for building permits, that kind of stuff. Building staff will meet downstairs in these designated spaces, and they are barrier free. They meet the same requirements that we were talking about.
Thank you very much. Anything else for Carl? Thanks, Carl. I appreciate you taking the time to meet with us, and we're looking forward to in-person tour of our new elevator. What's our timing on this?
I'm sorry?
What's the timing on the new elevator, exterior elevator?
So we're the completion date is in December of this year to get all of this work done. So we should start seeing some action pretty soon. There is quite a bit of work for the different. There's an electrical contractor for the elevator. The concrete demolition is substantial, so it's going to take some time.
Okay, perfect. Well, thanks very much.
No problem. Thanks for having me, guys. I would just like to add, trying to get better at consulting with this group for these types of major infrastructure projects. I don't know what the consultation was a year ago or further. I think Diane, you and I both had different people sitting in our chairs. But yeah, we'll try to do better and talk earlier in the process than the day after council.
Thank you, Carl. We really appreciate the effort that'll be going into that. Thank you very much.
Okay. Have a great rest of your meeting, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Don, you said the change. Having wandered into City Hall a couple times, never been to the mayor's office, but I've wandered around there.
The mayor's office is not accessible, by the way.
I didn't, yeah.
Um,
That we knew.
Mr. Chair, I would like to publicly thank our chief counselors last night. CAO White last night, CAO White, he wrote that for us and said, hey, our disabled community just wants dignity and respect. And our counselors did the same thing, so I just want to publicly say that. Thank you guys for putting that forward, because we were watching it and I didn't think it was gonna go through. So if you can send a letter of thanks to CAO White. For his, because but come on, guys, we need to make Susan Marie better. Community, so.
I think that's a great idea, Derek, and Steph, can you note that in the minutes? And Lisa, I'll give you an opportunity if you wanted to say anything further.
Yeah, I mean, Derek, thank you, and I, those are my closing comments, is that, you know, accessibility is paramount, that's always been my push and why I'm here, but I would really recommend for new counselors that there's some sort of education piece, and I don't know what that looks like. That's maybe something Dawn, Diane, and I can talk about. And I think that even if it's a, you know, this is the code, this is what we adhere to, this is what we, you know, we instill. I don't know, but I think something, and I think a presentation to council would be highly recommended. The next, I wouldn't say May 1st, but there's a May 29th meeting. I'm not going to be at the May 1st meeting, but I would certainly champion getting put on the agenda for May 29th. What the accessibility committee does, what we do, and I think that would be a really key piece, especially with some of the new counselors. And I think Peter can also help with doing the presentation, like a joint kind of planning.
Yeah,
You know, active transportation, like why we're here, what we do, and what it means, especially because we're seeing public consultations are going to be happening. City councilors are going to be part of that. I think that maybe 29th would be a good time to have it.
you were planning on going May 29th, right? Already?
That's the beginning of accessibility week.
Yeah,
Yes,
so we were thinking of doing a proclamation at the beginning and
but I would do a presentation.
more of a presentation.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Can I take that one step further, and not having hearing loss or vision loss, but working in the field and learning through the years that I've been doing that, I think not just knowing what we do, but knowing the people that we do it for and the struggles that they have. I think that stays in your mind more than anything, and understanding what hearing loss is like, vision loss is like, what that means, different disabilities and abilities. And I think if we can understand those at a more holistic level, it gives us more vision.
Yeah, and I think, so I did my own Northern Community Center tour with Virginia. I was a VIP, yeah. Had some questions for me that were very autism related specific. So, you know, and I related to her, I said, you know, where she thought a quiet room would be. I'm like, no, it's sort of like an isolation room. That doesn't work.
That's going up the lobby.
Yeah.
That was
No.
my thinking as well.
Yeah, I'm like, no. And I said the essence was that if you want to go watch a hockey game, you have sensory issues, there needs to be a viewing space. So we kind of agreed on the third classroom or meeting room or whatever you want to call it.
Small,
Yeah, that would be
that's the opening.
past the opening. Yeah, and
That makes more sense.
that makes more sense. And then underneath the stairwell, including like some of the sensory panels and things, like this would be a perfect space for putting that kind of thing in. But I nixed the ice machine.
Yeah, when we looked at that, I thought, this is where they put that people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I was like, no.
But I would love to hear, like, you advocate for people with autism, it would be great if we can all understand autism.
Not just autism, but we have at G4G, we have people that have anxiety or they have sensory issues.
Yeah.
So it's a social anxiety, social isolation, like, so it's not just autism related. Some people with hearing loss don't want to be in a loud area, especially if you have highly sensitive hearing devices. So it kind of lends to a lot of different, I guess, boxes that you can tick off, but I did have a big, with Virginia, and I brought up the adult change tables and things like that too, so. But I think a presentation to council, with some self-advocates would be really beneficial. On that May 29th, rather than just me talking. But I'll keep talking. Now I have to go pick up a kid. So I have.
And I mean, we still have a couple of other things to go through on this agenda, but do people feel that we want to take a short break for any reason? Or should we power right through?
You're good to go.
Power right through. That being the case, thanks, Lisa. See you later. Jonathan Kirkle is a planner with the planning department. And Jonathan, I'm going to turn this over to you. This is our policies on downtown patios, small street furniture houses. Way to go, Jonathan. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for your patience. We still got 8 more things to do. We're talking about.
And the elevator will be much better.
Go ahead, Jonathan, you're on.
Yep. As previously mentioned, I'm Jonathan Kirkle, Planning Division. I think this is probably my first time at an accessibility committee meeting. I've learned a lot of my first out, so I really see the importance of engagement. And I think this presentation will kind of speak to that as well. For myself, I've been involved in a lot of downtown related projects that involve incentives and that really impacts private, both private and public spaces. So accessibility is always a concern, always something we want to be aware of. And the purpose of this presentation is to identify these projects as well as upcoming projects, so that we can start to identify any accessibility needs now before things become finalized. There has been a lot of change in the planning office. We have had 3 new employees. And I think the goal is to have one of these planners more involved in what's going on, so we can start to compare best practices with accessibility and see any gaps in our current regulations or throw around the puzzle over. So these are the 5 projects that I'll be talking about: sidewalk patios down in the downtown that utilize public space, on-street furnishing and merchandising, the Queen Street and Spring Street reconstruction, as well as the active transportation plan that we just heard of. The rental housing financial incentive program, which expires in a couple of years, and the downtown financial incentive program, which is currently expired. So downtown sidewalk patios, the purpose is to encourage, downtown revitalization, to make the downtown a more vibrant and active place. The majority of patios do occupy city property, so that is either the sidewalk, a parking bay, or part of the city boulevard. We do have a series of regulations and guidelines that restaurants must abide by. There is an approval process where various city departments such as city planning, fire division, as well as accessibility committee reviews and comments upon. And that's so we can further ensure that accessibility related concerns are addressed, pedestrian safety. Patios are permitted within typical summer season. Here's a local example of a patio, or one of the types of patios. We see that patio area occupies the sidewalk. Therefore, pedestrians or whoever uses the sidewalk need to use the pedestrian walkway that is within the parking bay. Here's another example elsewhere, but it really shows the pedestrian wraparound in the parking bay. See that there needs to be fencing or some sort of a barrier to separate traffic, pedestrian. This part also needs to be leveled with the surrounding sidewalk. This would be a curbside patio. In this case, the sidewalk is wide enough to accommodate both the patio area and a 1.5 meter pedestrian clearway. So they're typically for patio layouts. This is called the frontage patio. You see that some of the regulations include a 1.5 or a 1.8 meter width for the pedestrian clearway. There needs to be a 1.5 meter separation distance between street objects such as fire hydrants. This can also include utility poles or planters. To enter into the patio area, require a minimum entrance width of at least 1.2 meters. The same concepts apply to the wraparound pedestrian clearway, 1.5 meters for the users of the sidewalk. And these are the remaining two patio layouts. Once we need to keep that various distance separations and pedestrian or sidewalk width. And once again, the regulations are over here. I do note that in the patio area, we do ask that at least one wheelchair accessible table that is easily accessible from the patio entrance be kept. And the transition between surfaces, for example, from the city sidewalk to that wooden wraparound walkway that I showed needs to be level. Once again, that permitted dates. Moving on to on-street furnishing and merchandising. So essentially, businesses can hang signs and place items such as furnishings and merchandising displays on city property. The overall goal, once again, is to improve the downtown, make it visually aesthetic, easy for businesses to conduct their business and promote the business. An example of a small street furnishing includes planters, small benches, seating arrangements. You see here, benches over here, planters around the building face. Signs and overhead fixtures. You have a sandwich board, the city sidewalk, as well as an overhanging sign protruding or encroaching onto the city right of way. This can also include canopies, awnings, hanging flags. Outdoor merchandise displays. This is something relatively new. I think it's last month it was passed by city council, but this permits businesses to advertise their merchandise on the city property. So on the left, is an example of some merchandising on their own property as well as the city property, the city boulevard section. Another example here, merchandising lining up in front of the building. Here is a local example as well, where we see it along the sidewalk, still providing pedestrian access. Another example of people with chairs. Yet another example. So for overhanging signs, canopies, awnings, these are the regulations. They include a height limit of no less than 2.5 meters. In terms of how much the sign can actually protrude from the building, looking at about 1.25 meters. So this would be the canopy, this is the height. I don't know if you can see my mouse. As for the furnishings and merchandising that's placed on city property, similar to the patio, if you want a 1.5 meter wide unobstructed pathway for users of the sidewalk. This is my only place such merchandising in front of the buildings once we remove at the end of the day. There are some considerations for visibility at intersections, just to make sure cars and pedestrians don't, or that they can visually see each other. Moving on to the Queen Street and Spring Street reconstruction. So it's still in the pre-construction phase. No construction has started, but I do know that there will be some consultation with the accessibility committee. Diane and myself have identified a few issues when we have received patio applications and circulated it. The active transportation plan, we're plugged in with the accessibility committee as well to make sure that any underlying concerns or issues are addressed. As for the downtown financial incentive program. This program has expired, but I anticipate that in the next few years, we will be looking to reactivate another replacement program. In the recently expired program, we did have some components that tried to raise awareness and encourage applicants to follow or just to consider and implement design standards that would make it easier for the facility to be used. And once again, this program is to provide financial incentives to downtown business owners for the purposes of improving their exterior building facade, as well as converting interior spaces for whether that is to reactivate for residential use or commercial use. So sorry, so some examples would be the doorknobs. Certain ways to access those are better than others. If you have like a handle or a knob that requires certain grasping or force to use, it's more difficult. Something such as a handlebar would be more easier. More examples, we have on the top left, ramps and wide door entrances for the wheelchairs. On the top right, we have examples of a lower countertop for those in a wheelchair to be able to conduct business with the store operator. Bottom two images relate to larger bathrooms with handlebars, wider entrance door, as well as enough space for a wheelchair to maneuver about. And this also applies to the hallways and interior corridors. Currently, the city has one financial incentive program for housing developments, and that's referred to as the Rental Housing Community Improvement Plan, or the RCIP for short. This provides financial incentives for certain types of residential or rental developments. And there are additional grants available for those projects that include barrier-free designs that go beyond the Ontario Building Code required aspects. This expires in a few years. Currently, we are working on more housing-related programs through the Housing Task Force. There's also the First Neighborhoods CIP. I don't know if these are terms that you're aware of, but I assume shortly we may be aware of. We definitely want to be plugged into the accessibility community just to know, to find out what other types of considerations should be implemented in these financial grants. And that concludes my presentation. Let's move forward.
Just one comment to do with the whole. About the idea of going inviting downtown. Now I think the city has taken good steps. The regulations, in my way I hear them, seem to be in good order. However, what happens if you run into someone who doesn't follow? What's the process to express a concern? I don't want to use the word complaint, but I have had run-ins with sounding boards that have caused they're not my favorite form of signage, let's put it that way.
No.
Part of that is I understand that they have probably been given the instructions thoroughly. I don't see anything that should be added here. But what do we do if someone's not entirely abiding by the requirements as described?
There is no, short of a complaint-based approach, there is no formal process that exists. I know a few times, at least in the example of patios, a few times I'll walk around. If I do notice a non-compliance, I would mention it to the owner, fix it.
Gotcha.
But that's definitely a good point that should be taken seriously, and we should have something more.
So we need to develop a process whereby I don't want to be unduly difficult, but if someone.
No, I know, like I see it myself too, where even as a pedestrian, sometimes I'm having difficulty navigating to give a bike ride, plans or.
If you're not
Sure.
sure, navigate.
Yeah, if you've got a concern or complaint, raise it to
Yeah.
Jonathan. And
If you send it to accessibility committee and then for myself,
Okay.
then we'll find out who can deal with it.
But I would also suggest that that probably should be included in the policy so that the folks developing it understand that we do have a method. I'm not looking to create controversy, but I think it should be underlined in a gentle, respectful way, saying, if you think, please follow these instructions. It's not, this is more than a suggestion, this is policy.
Yeah.
You see what I'm,
Yeah.
and do we need backup such as a municipal bylaw, or do we need to amend something? We need to make a recommendation to amend the council on a bylaw. I know that it just, I like the idea of active downtown. I don't want to be a wet blanket, but let's make sure that everyone understands that.
Yeah, like on the
Those
first,
aren't just suggestions that there's like the discussion I had earlier about the human rights code and the hub trail. The developers didn't realize they were, and that, the general, if it doesn't directly affect you, my friend, people don't often think about it. In this room, people are directly affected, we think about
what we can also do is, like, as you mentioned, maybe just the individual, the operator just isn't aware of it.
Yeah.
So as a first step,
it. That's
doing sort of like an educational piece.
the
And
kind
then
of,
if, and if they still don't comply, then we can.
that's why I like it in, so they understand what our process is if we run into a difficulty. I'm not looking for confrontation. The last thing I want to do is create a confrontation or a negative action. Because I think these downtown enlivening steps are absolutely necessary. They should have been done a quarter century ago. Really, but let's not, if people don't know, they have to know there's an enforcement fee. It's not just a nice to do, it should have to be part of the requirement. That's,
They could understand it's for a reason, that
Yeah.
that rule is in place. It is no fun walking into a building.
amen. I had it.
And probably many of these operators have like in red, the requirements or guidelines
That's,
as well.
well, that's a concern, but
But that's why we review them and,
Yeah.
and certainly Carol, I know we had a lot of conversations around this table a number of months ago about some issues that you've encountered with the patios, in a way that the barriers were not really barriers for you in that.
Right.
So we're certainly,
Yeah.
take that into consideration when we're reviewing things and looking at.
yeah,
And then when you go through something to walk up to group of them, then if we see something that is glaring, non-compliance, we'll bring it up with the operators. If we can get more, like if you can raise more awareness to us, we could kind of keep track of it,
that's,
just
Yeah.
to expand.
Yeah.
So we know more about what's looked at.
no one, because I wanted to make sure that, like as I said, if you read that and went through it, somebody set it up in accordance with that, I have no problem with it.
Yeah.
But it's where people don't, you can have the best regulations in the world, but if they're not
Right.
enforced, they don't exist.
Yeah.
And don't want to be perceived in a negative light, because I think these things are absolutely necessary. Because our downtown is in need of enlivenment. That's not a word,
We've actually gone downtown and walked it a couple of times. Checked out different things.
If we need to do those things, look at a planner,
Yeah,
just so, because I only know so much. I just do basic research on Google. My first hour here, I learned so much I wasn't aware of. So I'm sure there could be a lot more.
Yeah.
but
Teaching, so.
Derek, go ahead.
Question for Peter and Jonathan. Actually, no comment. See that first picture on the top, just above the bathroom stall?
Over here, yeah.
Yeah, I would never, ever go by myself on that ramp, because if the chair goes the one way, I'm on the ground. So there's no way, because it's just like what I'm saying is there needs to be, so if it's
Where it sides.
bird sides or something, or even like grab bar or something, like just.
Something
sort
to
of-
keep in the ramp.
Yeah, just sort of the Cherokee's on ramp. Because with the tray, I have a hard time seeing where the,
Your wheels are going out.
yeah,
So you don't want to, concerns of tipping over exist. And
Yeah,
Okay.
that's frightening.
And I was on.
I didn't design that around to code though.
no, but I'm just saying, like, make sure that, there's even a grip guard on it or a slip thing on it, because if it's wet, and somebody slips over,
A benefit could be a negative right away.
Yeah.
Yeah. Other comments or questions?
I'm glad you brought that up there because, kind of more of a visual thing, eh? That's frightening.
Diane?
Yeah, Peter, you and I have talked about some of these applications. I believe applications will be coming to the accessibility center for a quick review, see, do we see any issues in the design phase of it? I've agreed that I will chat with Carol so that, because she will see something different with a different set of eyes than I will. So as a preventive before it's done, we'll do that. The other thing that we talked about, Peter, is that if problems do pop up, that we'll work with the patio or the display operator on a case-by-case basis to try to problem solve the issues. And I'm sure it'll be a very complimentary type process. And the last part is that there will be mistakes made. There will be. There's just no way that it can't happen. But we will learn from that and we will change guides in the future. So it will be a bit of a process. And then the very last part is that with the reconstruction of Queen Street, we have an amazing opportunity to make our downtown much more navigable for people with vision disabilities, especially by using tactile markings on the ground, alerting people to where there is a doorway, a store entrance, or something happening. So we have a great opportunity to do that better.
And just to say, I think, sorry, on, my understanding is all the patios have expired, right? So they're all going to be coming in, like all the patios on Queen Street, maybe a dozen. Maybe not.
About that, I think last year we had 8, yeah. 8.
Okay.
Yeah.
So those will be coming in probably early May. They'll probably all be coming in, I'm thinking, short batches, I guess you could say.
Derek, go ahead.
got a question, I don't know if this relates to what we're talking about, and correct me if I'm wrong, but there is 2 buildings. There is the Union Hall and the Elks Hall that are sitting empty. Is there any word on if those buildings are gonna come down, more parking, or is it going to remain those buildings up?
I haven't heard anything.
I would suggest they remain up, and if they came down, it probably would not be for marketing. I think, see, yeah, I haven't heard any movements terribly down or.
I can tell you, Derek, a number of years ago, when we were building a new, what's now the GFL Center, the new Memorial Gardens, we attempted to acquire those 2 properties. And also there was 2 houses on the corner. And the house guys were pretty reasonable, but the owners of the Union Hall and the Elks were getting some very bad advice on real estate values. And the city just said no. So we did make an attempt to acquire them. I think to go back and acquire them now is unlikely.
And it wouldn't be for parking.
Okay, because what I'm saying is that the other team's buses, when they park, so that the visiting team, they park right in that parking lot. And they wait.
Right where the Parabus parks, right?
Yes,
Parabus loading zone.
yes.
Right.
You know, what we can do is we can talk to them and have them move those buses off site until they're needed again. I mean, the teams come in and unload quite early. So those buses don't need to stay there. That's a
Yeah,
good point.
okay. Sorry, we're off topic, but it's. Rather than bring that up.
Eric, accessibility, we're not off topic, we just, I don't go out to many games, so I didn't realize that. I've used that entrance for the clinic, for the,
The COVID clinic.
yeah, work like a grease piggy. But there wasn't a Greyhound, converted Greyhound bus sitting there, so, learned something new. Small things with wheels, that's today's meeting.
I like the t-shirt idea. Who was that? That was great. I think we should get some t-shirts. I have a question, Peter, and maybe a totally unfair question, but with regard to the, like, I think you nailed it. I think the downtown redevelopment, that's the project. I mean, we're either gonna mess this up or it's gonna be great. And however it ends up, it's gonna be like that for the next 50 years, right? So it's really important to get that right. We started off and you know, I know there was 2 series of public consultations on that. And then everything went quiet. Like, do you have any idea where they are?
So everything went quiet for a couple of reasons. One, there was a price tag that came out of it and it was phenomenally high,
Yeah,
like everything else, but there was also a lot of pushback from the cyclists involved. Mr. Rhea, there was a lot of pushback to do more consultation, and that various alternatives were explored. Because it was basically like, here it is, what do you think? Where they were like, well, no, you gotta, so there's some various alternatives that are being created by ECOM. They were supposed to be done like in a year, but so there's gonna be another round of public consultation.
okay.
That's where that's at. And we're just waiting on the consultant on what. I think 3 alternatives, one of them maybe has I think it's the do or the as proposed alternative. Then I think they've got a bike lane on one side on one and trying different things within the right. It's going through a process.
Good, okay, well, as long as we get to see the game. Before we finalize things. I think that's really big.
I think our friends in planning now recognize it's a lot easier to change the line on the document.
Yes,
Then once we start pouring concrete. I think of not putting in the boxes of GFL. For those members of the committee, we spent a good, 2 years of this committee's time was spent working on that project. Not entirely exclusively, but darn close. And there were some things we recommended that weren't accepted, some things that council decided not to add that we thought would have worked, i.e. the number of boxes. And now they can't go back and put in the things we should have put in. If the funds had been spent up front, they would have been returned by now. But I'm just, again, we provide advice, we don't have the final say. But they can't put in another pipe, right? It's very difficult to take down. Once concrete's up, it's hard to move.
Yeah. I was impressed by Justin's comment this afternoon, not to be totally off topic here, but using Ottawa's example, where they said we did a small amount and we did it right. And that, I think.
Yeah, they started at, I wrote that down, 10%. It was 40 of their 400 kilometers is when
We're gonna get it right.
did the winter maintenance on.
Perfect.
So I'd be curious what percent we do.
We don't do winter maintenance.
Well, on sidewalks, there's some that get done.
Oh, on sidewalks.
Well, they just talking, was like referencing that their Ottawa's trail net, not sidewalks.
Not traveling, they do have some things.
Yeah, probably.
Because their sidewalks would be under other.
Yeah. Has that ever been costed? Did anybody ever do costing? Because I mean, you've got the hub trail, it's a
The reason they did, this, doing this out, was because, if you remember, in 1992, the asphalt pathway along St. Mary's River Drive, next to St. Mary's River, was put in. And after like 30 years, it was still perfect. And the reason it was so perfect is because they didn't plow it in the winter. And as soon as you plow stuff, you get that whole freeze thaw cycle kicks in. And automatically you just limited the length span of that. So that's what.
Blade, not,
That was
the
it.
plow blade would not do an asphalt base world enjoy. It can get it out.
Actually, it wasn't actually the plowing, it wasn't the weight of the plow, it was just the fact that
Freeze thaw.
clear it. You lose that protective blanket of snow. Yeah, and that, and all of a sudden you have that freeze thaw there all the time. Yeah,
Keeping,
even is what you've
and
done.
then you have to redo it or you get cut, as people try to.
So anyways, that's.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I never heard that.
Well, talking about, not to change the subject or anything, but talking about the paved walkways. And I think I mentioned this before, I can't remember the answer to it. I'm gonna ask it again. I love the paved walkways. The cement ones, it wears down my cane, I get stuck and they're all moving and all that there. Why aren't they just paving where the sidewalks are instead of using cement slabs?
I think that's a really good question for engineering.
And I agree with walkers, then it's easier for walkers. Knee replacement, way easier on my legs on the car rather than some.
Yeah, first say they run on the road instead of the sidewalk.
Exactly, exactly.
What's the name of the t-shirt we're getting?
The thing is, it's cheaper to, I'm pretty sure it's cheaper to repair pavement than it would be cement.
It is, but I know what the answer is. In theory, the cement lasts longer. But and it doesn't, because it doesn't heat, like asphalt will move every year. It'll go up and down a little bit every year.
Right.
But usually it kind of goes back to where it was,
Yeah.
in most cases. But that's what they're saying, but it does cost more. It's like asphalt's considerably cheaper than concrete.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, we have guys in town that have small, they can do 8-foot asphalt paths. We have a contractor in town that can do that. He's got all the equipment for it. They're not laying that by hand. You know, and they just kind of roll with it. So it's price wise, it's pretty good.
When we do the walks, my friend and I, we would rather do the bike, walk on the bike trail and let the bikes do. Because with the walker, you thump, 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 thump.
Yeah.
And we're thinking, you know, maybe they should switch, let the bikes do the.
Yeah.
Oh, the cyclists will complain.
Hmm?
Then the cyclists would complain.
That's why
It's a senior's time now.
And there's more of us than anybody else.
Demographically, both are good.
You're the canary in the coal mine.
That's why I asked that question, will somebody if they got on a trail instead of a sidewalk? Get charged in a wheelchair, and the answer, I got my answer, no, it's to be used by everybody.
Could be dangerous though with the speed of this, I believe it's dangerous with the speed of the cyclist coming around a blind corner. I think it's very
You might have to,
dangerous for anybody.
you might have to walk again, so that might have to be denoted somewhere in terms of signage.
We got insurance.
Oh.
Yeah, and he was talking about different types of bike lanes than what we traditionally have, which is. He was talking about, like, think of like Bay Street, the hub trail on the south side of Bay Street, as opposed to Queen Street, which is an on-street painted
Okay,
lane. So I think he was probably thinking more about the separated lane than the on-street lane.
okay, but that's why I asked, like, cause there was a new section of the Fire Station Mall done, and that's why I asked that, like, as long as it's not on the roadway, we can go ahead and use the pump trail.
Yeah, that's actually called a multi-use trail. It's for everybody who's not driving a bike.
Okay,
Folks, it is 4 o'clock. We kind of have made a commitment that we're gonna end at 4 o'clock from 2 to 4. We do have a couple of things left over on our agenda. Would anyone object if we just move those to our next meeting?
How important is it?
Well,
To read it.
go ahead, Diane, I think that.
Okay, so the items that we didn't cover was pedestrian crossover update. We have a little bit of information on that, probably only about a 5-minute conversation. Old business, location of benches and trees and waste baskets, as Diane brought up, I think at our last meeting. Update on the tour of Northern Community Center, so I was gonna just share information from those that did the tour. And then an update on the video relay interpreting VRI update. And then the last one was site plan.
These are all basically information discussion items, but they're not anything that requires a decision today.
And let's hold off.
Yeah.
One of the questions I did have was the pedestrian light things, but I'll hold off on that one too.
What is the matter about the small wheels again?
Things with small wheels. So Wes,
Thanks with.
Small things with wheels.
small things with wheels,
I think.
small things.
Small things, Mills.
I like them. Just for, clarification, Mr. Chair, just so you know that we're probably still recording. So we just gotta be careful that we're not getting off topic. We're still recording on YouTube.
Good point. No one has said anything inappropriate.
I think we're always on top, sometimes we.
Yeah,
Our discussions do, but as long as it's on theme.
No, but it just reminding people that we are on YouTube.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary.
So if we're all good, thank you very much for your attendance today. And I'm going to declare this meeting adjourned, and we'll see you all next month. Thank you very much.